The Philippines is sitting on a gold mine, but not the kind you'd expect. Beneath its vast waters lies an untapped fortune in oil and gas, a resource so massive it could reshape the country's economic future. According to a report by the U.S. Geological Survey and China's Ministry of Geology and Mineral Resources, the Spratly Islands alone could be hiding 17.1 billion barrels of oil, a staggering amount. But that's just the beginning. A more recent discovery in the Celebes Sea, near Sulu, suggests that the Philippines' hydrocarbon reserves could be worth an eye-watering $26.3 trillion, even surpassing Kuwait's 13 billion barrels of oil. And then there's the bigger picture. The entire South China Sea is believed to contain 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of oil in proven and probable reserves. But the real mystery? Another 160 trillion cubic feet of undiscovered natural gas and 12 billion barrels of oil could still be waiting to be found. With that much wealth at stake, tensions in the South China Sea have been running high. Between 2018 and 2025, China, Vietnam, the Philippines, and other Southeast Asian nations clashed over drilling rights, with Chinese patrols becoming more aggressive in disputed waters. The Washington-based Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative has warned that these disputes could soon escalate into full-blown confrontations. Despite the growing risks, China, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia have been pushing forward with energy projects, while the Philippines has been holding back, suspending all oil and gas exploration in contested waters since 2014. But in 2024, things took a dramatic turn. With energy prices soaring and global demand increasing, the United States has expressed serious interest in partnering with the Philippines. Several Philippine energy firms, granted exploration rights within their exclusive economic zone, EEZ, are now actively seeking American partners for joint ventures in offshore drilling. And there's urgency. The Malampaya gas field, which currently supplies 40% of the electricity for Metro Manila, is set to run dry by 2027. If nothing changes, the country could face an energy crisis with skyrocketing electricity costs and economic instability. But there's hope. With an expected $100 billion in energy investments pouring in, the Philippines is positioning itself as a major player in the region's oil and gas industry. And it's not just the US showing interest. Japan is also stepping in, strengthening Manila's strategic alliances. The Philippines' untapped oil fortune and why the US is getting involved. The Philippines is sitting on a multi-trillion-dollar energy jackpot, yet much of it remains untouched. Beneath its waters lie vast oil and gas reserves, enough to transform the nation's economy and drastically cut its dependence on costly energy imports. But there's a problem. China wants in. For years, Beijing has aggressively expanded its claims in the South China Sea, using its controversial 9-dash line to justify control over resource-rich waters, including areas legally belonging to the Philippines. As tensions rise, the United States is stepping in, forging stronger security ties with Manila to counter China's growing influence. But Beijing isn't happy about it. After the Marcos administration granted the U.S. greater military access under the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, China accused the U.S. of destabilizing the region. Now, a critical decision looms. Should the Philippines move forward with oil and gas exploration at Reed Bank? Time is running out. The Malampaya gas field, which currently supplies 40% of Metro Manila's electricity, is projected to run dry by 2027. Without new energy sources, the country risks facing skyrocketing electricity prices and economic strain. Yet, while Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam have tapped into their oil-rich resources, the Philippines remains the only country in the region that hasn't aggressively developed its hydrocarbon reserves within its 200-mile exclusive economic zone, EEZ. According to estimates, the Reed Bank alone holds $26.3 trillion worth of untapped oil and gas, making it the largest energy prize in Philippine waters. If tapped, these resources could turn the Philippines into a major oil producer, reducing reliance on expensive imports and shielding the economy from global energy shocks. If exploration and production begin, the impact could be massive. The Philippine oil industry currently accounts for only 0.19% of the country's GDP, but that could change dramatically. Consider this. Indonesia, Southeast Asia's biggest oil producer, pumps out 743,000 barrels per day, contributing $140 billion annually, about 12% of its economy. If the Philippines achieves even similar output levels, it could inject at least $150 billion into its economy every year. That kind of wealth would catapult the Philippines past Thailand, making it the second largest economy in the region, with a projected GDP of $620 billion. And it doesn't stop there. With lower production costs, the Philippines could compete directly with Vietnam and Indonesia as a prime destination for manufacturing, attracting a surge in foreign investments and turning the country into a major industrial hub in Asia. Locally produced oil means no more costly imports, leading to cheaper petroleum prices. That's a game changer. Lower fuel costs mean lower transportation expenses, reduced manufacturing costs, and more affordable goods. When essential commodities become cheaper, households get more value for their money, boosting consumer spending, the backbone of the Philippine economy, accounting for 70% of GDP. With this economic transformation, inflation could remain low, disposable income would rise, and businesses would thrive. The benefits would ripple across the nation, creating new job opportunities and stabilizing the economy for decades. By 2040, the Philippine government aims to expand domestic oil and gas reserves, ensure a steady petroleum supply, and establish a thriving investment-driven natural gas industry. These goals are critical, especially with the country's population expected to jump from 110 million in 2020 to 148 million by 2040. But there's a looming energy crisis on the horizon. Malampaya's depletion in 2039 could wipe out nearly 30% of the country's fuel supply, impacting thousands of megawatts of power generation. The clock is ticking. Will the Philippines seize this historic opportunity to become an energy powerhouse? Or will it continue to watch from the sidelines as others claim the riches hidden beneath its waters? One thing is certain, the decisions made today will shape the nation's economic destiny for generations to come. For a nation on the rise, energy is everything. The Philippines, eager to fuel its booming economy and rapid infrastructure expansion, is facing a critical challenge. It needs a new, reliable energy source to sustain its growth. Fortunately, the country is sitting on a treasure trove of untapped hydrocarbons, both on land and beneath its coastal waters. But here's the catch. The industry remains largely unexplored and underfunded, with security concerns casting a long shadow over investment opportunities. Rewind to the 1970s, when only a handful of wells had been drilled, barely scratching the surface of the nation's oil and gas potential. Today, despite a population of 110 million, the Philippines produces just 37,000 barrels of oil per day, a drop in the ocean compared to the 474,000 barrels it consumes daily. Manila made a bold move last spring, briefly allowing exploration at Reed Bank, only to quickly pull back as tensions flared with the China Coast Guard. Now, here's where things get even more complicated. The Reed Bank, or Recto Bank, is the crown jewel of the Philippines' energy prospects, holding an estimated 5 billion barrels of oil and 55 trillion cubic feet of gas. But it's also ground zero for escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea as China aggressively asserts its maritime claims. Filipino energy firms, unable to push forward in Reed Bank, have turned to a much smaller and safer bet, the Cadlao oil field, a decades-old site with just 5 million barrels in reserves, located outside of China's contested 9-dash line. The big question remains, can the Philippines break free from its energy dependence and tap into its own resources? Southeast Asian neighbors like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and even Vietnam have successfully turned their state-run oil companies into regional powerhouses, balancing resource extraction with diplomatic maneuvering. Even Vietnam, despite its own tensions with China, has found a way to keep its oil and gas ambitions alive. But there's hope on the horizon. The Marcos administration is signaling a renewed push for energy independence, giving the green light for fresh oil and gas exploration. Even in the disputed waters of the West Philippine Sea, the Department of Energy has highlighted a key milestone: the renewal of the Malampaya service contract. a major step towards securing a stable, reliable, and affordable energy supply for Filipinos. The Philippines may be standing on the brink of an energy revolution. The recent extension of Malampaya's service contract until 2039 isn't just a bureaucratic renewal, it's a game changer for the country's natural gas industry. With an estimated 147 billion cubic feet of remaining gas in Malampaya, this move ensures that every last drop is fully utilized. But that's just the beginning. Beyond the existing reserves, experts predict that nearby areas hold an additional 210 billion cubic feet waiting to be tapped. The government isn't sitting on the sidelines either. It has actively encouraged investments, approving the sale of Shell Philippines' 45% stake in Service Contract 38. As a result, Malampaya is now entirely operated by an all-Filipino consortium, marking a historic moment for the country's largest upstream petroleum project. But Malampaya is just one piece of the puzzle. When Prime Infrastructure Capital acquired Shell's shares in 2022, it wasn't just about taking control, it was about unlocking the nation's vast, untapped potential. According to reports from the US Geological Survey and China's Ministry of Geology and Mineral Resources, the Spratly Islands alone could hold as much as 17.1 billion barrels of oil. And then there's the Sulu Sea. Recent discoveries in this region, particularly in the Celebes Sea, suggest that the Philippines could be sitting on more than $26.3 trillion worth of hydrocarbon deposits, far exceeding Kuwait's oil reserves. That's an unfathomable wealth, capable of transforming the country into a major global energy player. One of the biggest untapped resources lies within the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, BRRMN, where the Sulu Sea and Cotabato basins hold immense potential. A study led by Ishak Mastura identified these regions as some of the most promising petroleum sedimentary basins in the country. Government data backs this up. The offshore Sulu Sea basin is estimated to contain 203 million barrels of oil equivalent, while the land-based Cotabato basin holds 159 million barrels, with an already confirmed 29 billion cubic feet of gas deposits. Unlike the contested Spratly Islands, these areas are well within the country's undisputed territory, and if these resources are successfully developed, the impact would be nothing short of transformational. The Philippines wouldn't just reduce its dependence on expensive oil imports, it could become an exporter, turning energy into a powerful economic driver. Rising gas prices, they could become a thing of the past. Poverty, the nation could finally break free. Yet for decades, the country's oil and gas sector has remained largely dormant, held back by territorial disputes in the South China Sea and hesitant investors. But now, the tide is turning. The current administration is pushing harder than ever to unlock the Philippines' energy wealth, with potential backing from US investments. The question is no longer where these resources are or how much they're worth. The real question is, when will the Philippines finally claim its energy future?